Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. We're glad to have you here. We are going to talk about EasyMesh today, coming from the Wi-Fi Alliance, because not too long ago, I was at the Wi-Fi Now conference, and one of the early sessions, they were talking about EasyMesh, the announcement of that, and that was coming from the president of the Wi-Fi Alliance, and it was an interesting concept that they're bringing out there. And so today, I'm going to be talking about this with Francois. How are you doing, Francois?
Hi, Roel. Very good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Things are going here on the West Coast, so things are getting pretty busy. Been testing a lot of different equipment to get more familiar with just Wi-Fi in general and see how that works. But yeah, it's been pretty good. How about you?
Very good too. The weather's better and better here. We're getting the high temperatures, so everything is nice. Getting some good work done as well, so it's perfect. And EasyMesh is it's a nice subject. I think maybe not everyone will be exposed to this certification, but I think it's our role to explain what it is and then who will benefit from it.
Yeah, and this solution, I think, and I'll start it off from this perspective, is I really think this is for your big ISPs who sell you this gateway in the home, but I believe the ISPs have a big issue with Wi-Fi, because depending on where you put this gateway, it's going to be problematic where it probably won't provide enough coverage in the house.
Yeah, I think that's one of the first problematic they're trying to answer. Like, you know, in recent years, we got more and more devices into the house connected to the Wi-Fi network, and I'm thinking about, you know, all these video sharing devices like Google Chrome, Apple TVs, even some TVs now have those features built in, and so we got more and more bandwidth hungry devices connected to the home Wi-Fi network that wasn't necessarily built or designed for all this traffic. And then and on top of that, we had, you know, big houses and access point, especially a dual band access point on 5 gig wasn't sufficient to cover the whole house and support that many devices. So more and more houses needed multiple APs. And we started to see a whole bunch of different solutions coming up on the market with multiple APs, multiple nodes. I'm thinking about, you know, Eero, Google Wi-Fi, and, you know, all the other solutions that are now available on the market.
Yeah, and you're right, because you have your smart TVs, your iPads, your tablets. There's just so many devices now in the home where it's also creating a capacity issue. So what the vendor or the ISP is trying to solve is all these support calls that are coming in to troubleshoot the Wi-Fi network, because it may be coming out of the gateway that they provide to the customer, and then minimizing the amount of truck roll. So anytime they have to send a technician out to your house, that's pretty costly for them. And what they are seeing is Mesh is a viable solution where you can meet some of this coverage and capacity by sprinkling some of these APs around the house where there isn't enough coverage. But the difference here is the EasyMesh certification really focuses on being interoperability between vendors. So you can have multi-vendor access points in using EasyMesh, as long as they're certified with EasyMesh. And what's interesting is there's going to be one device that controls all of these nodes.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're going to have, the certification explained that they're going to be a controller, and then they're going to be agents which are pretty much the APs, the other APs, in the house or in the environment connected to the controller. It sounds very similar to what we know in the enterprise space. No?
Yeah, it sounds like we're transferring some enterprise features down to the home now. So it sounds a little bit more complicated. There hasn't been a lot of detail into how this is going to be done from a vendor's perspective. But yeah, we have two logical entities, your what they call the multi-AP controller, the one device that can communicate with the one or more multi-AP agents. So only one controller can exist in this environment. And then your multi-AP agents, like you said, are your mesh APs that are scattered around in the house. And I guess we can kind of dive into how they're going to interact with each other, because this is the most difficult part, I believe, which is going to be getting multiple vendors to be able to work with each other. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Because like right now, all these different solutions are proprietary, and they don't necessarily work the same way. So they're trying to define guidelines or using standards to define exactly how it's going to work out.
And kind of the way I see this playing out is you have an ISP who has this gateway, and they're going to say it's EasyMesh certified with the Wi-Fi Alliance. Here's the number of vendors that are also EasyMesh certified, and they'll probably sell that solution as well to have that person put that in their house. And that way the ISP with their gateway, which is the controller, will be able to have more control over how Wi-Fi is actually performed or done in the house.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're going to do that. It's taking a lot of risk for them, right? Except if they don't support it. I think they'll just have their own solution that they just sell you, like the gateway, and then maybe nodes that you can, purchase if you need any, and then they can sell it to you for a flat fee per month. That's how I see it played out.
Maybe then managed Wi-Fi coming from the ISP.
Yeah, and then after that, they can tell you, okay, it's EasyMesh certified. So if you on your own want to add nodes and go to the store, Best Buy, or go to Amazon and buy your own EasyMesh access point and then deploy them in your house, it should work. If they try to support all of that, it's gonna, service providers, they take a lot of they take this very seriously. The supports, the amount of support calls they get for anything Wi-Fi, and then the amount of truck rolls they have. They keep track of everything and how much it costs them. So I think it would be risky for them to say, okay, it's EasyMesh. Go ahead and buy everything you want and we'll support it.
No, I think they're going to recommend which vendors they support or are more compatible with. It'll be interesting to see what the wording will come out from the ISP with the marketing. But in terms of the customer actually bringing in EasyMesh access points, we're talking about I guess we'll use the terms agent APs. And what's interesting to me is they really act like an enterprise system according to the specification from Wi-Fi Alliance, because the agents actually report measurements that they collect back to the controller. So the controller can make certain decisions based on those measurements.
Yeah, it's something we didn't mention yet, but the agents, APs, and the controllers can be connected together via different medium. Yeah. So it could be Ethernet, it could be over Wi-Fi, it could be over DOCSIS, which is a protocol running over the coax cables. So they called it EasyMesh, but it doesn't mean that the agents AP have to be connected back to the main controller via Wi-Fi. It can be using a cable, actually, Ethernet or coax.
Yeah, because there is a way that these agent APs communicate back to the controller. Now, it can be different mediums to get back to the controller and to join the controller, and that's because they use a control interface that is created between the agents and the controller. So there's a separate communication line, kind of like CapWAP, right? where you've got this communication channel between the AP and the controller. We're going to see that with EasyMesh as well, where they call it the control interface. And then I guess the next challenge is how do you even bring these agent APs, these multi-AP agents on board to a controller? And then there's a couple of different ways that I saw in the specification on how that happens. But the mandatory method that the Wi-Fi Alliance requires is the push button configuration. Are you familiar with that, Francois?
Yeah, so it's kind of like the WPS push button.
Yeah.
Right. So you push the button and then they are automatically get the configuration from the gateway. So there's a little exchange of packets between the agent and the controller in order for the agent to be onboarded and then retrieve the configurations. It's meant to be very easy to use, like kind of like a plug and play. You connect it, you push the button, and then you're good to go. And I think the ease of use. Yeah, I think the ease of use is very important in this type of environment, because you're going to be dealing with technicians or homeowners that don't have like a deep Wi-Fi expertise, right? They're not going to connect the cable and go to configuration mode and all of that. So you want it to be as simple as possible, but at the same time secure.
Yeah, and that's why the APs must be EasyMesh certified. And then the onboarding method must be the same. So that way, when you do press that button, the controller knows, okay, I've got an agent. I'm going to push this config to that AP, and that AP knows how to take in that configuration and apply it to how the controller wants it to act. And I think that's, like you said, that's going to be key for mesh deployments to be installed correctly and properly across in the house, especially when it's, and I'm always talking about this from the ISP perspective, because that's where I think EasyMesh is really going to play out, is with the ISP deploying Wi-Fi for their customers.
And maybe at the end of the episode, we'll share our thoughts. But I won't be, if this program picks up, certification picks up, I won't be surprised to see EasyMesh in maybe small businesses as well.
I mean,
because of the ease of use and
we've seen this trend, right? But we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
let's talk more about how EasyMesh actually works, because I guess let's go into the operations of EasyMesh, because the specification does outline quite a bit in detail of how this is going to play out, how these APs are going to work with each other, what features do you get besides, hey, I got a mesh AP, now I got coverage. It's a lot more than that. If you look under the hood into the specification, they're actually defining what I think is like enterprise quality features here.
And this is actually what the ISP needs. So I think the ISP might have worked, on this one and provided a lot of, feedback to the Wi-Fi Alliance, in terms of what they wanted to see on their end. So one of the operation is called capability report, and this is kind of like what you mentioned earlier. The agents report some capabilities back to the controller. They're going to tell them what they support, number of radios, the channel width they support, the PHY protocol they support. So is it 802.11 AC agent and so on. And then according to this capabilities, the controller can take certain decisions, right? Is it a dual band agent, or is it a 2.4 only, and so on? And then you can take some decision in terms of how to configure this specific agent.
Yeah, and that message about the capability report, that's also a mandatory, that's mandatory in the specification. So the agents, the multi-AP agents must support this. And that's being able to receive messages from the controller to determine the multi-AP capabilities and be able to respond with that back to the controller. And one of the other things, too, about the capabilities is there is a specification there about the sending client capability query messages. And I think that's to the actual client devices trying to figure out what capabilities do they have and then reporting that back to the controller. But I'd be interested to see how that actually works out. This is probably assuming that the devices are also certified with various Wi-Fi Alliance certifications in a perfect world, right? Where
Yeah.
everything
Or
can
supporting some
communicate.
IEEE amendments. Yeah.
Cool. And then when it comes to the capabilities reports, I mean, channel is what channel you're going to operate on is a feature of that, right? You want the multi APs are going to be configured by the controller, so that means also in addition to what channel they're going to operate on, that's talking about
Yeah.
the transmit power that's going to be used. So there is some form of like RRM on these controllers.
Yeah. That's exactly what I thought when I was reading the document, because it says that, okay, the controller now is going to choose the channels that will be used by the agent, and then by default, the maximum transmit power will be used unless the controller decides to lower it down to improve the system signal conditions. So it sounds very radio resource management like. So like you said, they probably took some enterprise feature and they're trying to incorporate it into a smaller setup or home environment.
Yeah, it's called a channel preference query message from the controller. So then that the multi AP agent receives that and determines what channel it believes it should be operating on, sends that to the controller, and the controller gets what it'll do is if the controller had some values from previously from that AP about what channel it was operating on, it'll actually discard that and just take whatever the preference is from the multi AP. And what's really interesting here is that DFS is going to be supported in this specification. Now we'll see whether or not these consumer level APs will actually implement that within the hardware there.
Yeah.
But
I think the more I've started to see consumer APs supporting DFS channels, so I won't be
That's good.
surprised to see that more and more in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it must be supported, and I'll talk more about that with my thoughts at the end. But I did not see any mention of 160 megahertz channel widths.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. Well, it's a good sign, but then I'll still provide some of my thoughts later on. So we'll see about
Okay.
that. And not to say that this, I mean, the EasyMesh certification, I don't think is really finalized yet. So things could change.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about capability reports, channel selection. Why don't we talk about this thing called link metric collection?
Yeah, so I think this is the one of the feature coming from the ISPs where they're trying to get more information from the client devices remotely. So this feature might be able to help them to this regard. So the client devices can convey link metrics information related to the network, right? And then all the agents AP can also leverage IEEE 802.11k beacon report measurements to report metrics about the quality of the links between the agents and the clients. So if you're thinking from an ISP standpoint, they're going to be able to know remotely the environment. They can have some metrics about the environment. They're going to know which clients has a poor RSSI and so on. So they can have a little bit of a better visibility remotely.
I think it's a way to the way I analyze this, because if you think of in terms of the backhaul for some of the mesh APs, is if these multi AP agents are sending back their link metric data, that also includes estimating the data rate for the downlink and uplink of these mesh nodes. And to me, that sounds almost like they're taking part of that into their radio algorithm and being able to say, all right, from this mesh node, I can see there could be two uplinks. I'm going to pick the better one versus the one that's not going to perform as good. And that's could be part of it. And also being able to hear from the clients themselves. I think It almost sounds like they're trying to build a better RRM algorithm than some of the enterprise vendors.
I'm thinking maybe also if using Wi-Fi to connect your controller and your agents, maybe you can use this feature to know if your agents are too far away from the controller. They're not getting a strong connection back to the gateway. That could affect all the potential clients connecting to this agent. So maybe they could leverage that to let the user know that your node is too far from the gateway.
Exactly. Because in the Wi-Fi Now conference, one of the vendors one of the ISPs that was speaking talked about being able to give more troubleshooting abilities to the actual customer. So part of that is providing an interface telling them whether or not their AP is in a good location or in a bad location. And we were asking questions about how were they going to be able to do that. And now seeing specifications in EasyMesh, this might be one of the ways they tell the user if they build an app for their network, right?
Yeah.
Being able to do things like say, hey, this AP here that you installed is seeing pretty bad signal quality from its upstream. So you should move it, that kind of thing. So I think it'll be pretty simple, but having this kind of information is going to be useful for the ISP, even in troubleshooting. It might not be for the user, but for the ISP themselves, they can say, you got a mesh node that's in a bad spot. It should be located somewhere else that has better signal and better quality connection.
Yeah. And another network operation we have is client steering. Right, so the controller sends control messages to the agent APs to steer clients. So it's really to what you mentioned earlier, right? Because the controller will have a view of all the other agents, it could let the agent know, okay, this client will have a better connection if it connects through another agent. So, steer the client, please.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of us have problems in the enterprise doing this, right? Either band steering or roaming, or basically leveraging 802.11k, V, and R. And we're seeing now in homes with EasyMesh that they want to use these protocols. And the ISP has said, I forgot which ISP it was. I want to say it was either Comcast or someone else. They're saying that they are now starting to see a lot of clients being able to support 802.11k, V, and R. So I think this is the direction they want to go to help create a better experience. And maybe that's just what it is. Like more clients support this because then now you can tell the clients to actually steer them in the right direction, right? You're going to have to leverage that link metric collection within that 802.11k, the beacon report. And then with 802.11v, actually move them to transition them to a better AP.
And one scenario I have in mind for this, and I've done some testing, so that's why I can talk a little bit about it. But it's let's say you're coming home, you have your phone in your pocket, your phone is configured to automatically connect to your home Wi-Fi network. If your AP at home has the same transmit power for 2.4 and 5, on which frequency band do you think your phone is going to connect first when you go home? It's going to be on the 2.4, right? And if these APs don't handle those, amendments and such, your phone is going to stay on the 2.4, and depending on how your phone roams as well. But I've seen most of the time that your phone stays on 2.4, even if you're a centimeters away from your home router. So I think this is a key feature for the house, for the ability to have someone arriving home, first connecting to the 2.4 radio, and then having the gateway understanding that now the device is in the house, and you can steer it to a 5 gig radio or something like that, and better give the device a better experience. Or so I think it's a key feature for ISPs, I believe.
And I think this is where, so in my opinion, where things start to go a little bit south is if how these devices interact to these, right? Because it's going to depend on the algorithm that they're using to make this happen. because from what I'm seeing in the specification, some of the metrics that they're using for client steering is going to be RSSI based, and there's going to be a threshold. And so if it's not going to be anything more beyond that, like you said, if you have 2.4 and 5 transmitting at such strong transmit power, the RSSI threshold is not going to be met in order for it to move. That's where you're going to have to rely on the actual band steering. So there's client steering, and then there's band steering, right? And then the way they also control that is by blocking a device from joining a specific BSS ID. So this is nothing different than what we're used to seeing in the enterprise, and it's just going to be interesting how that actually plays out with EasyMesh. So I don't know. We'll see how that works out. That part I'm a little bit more
skeptical about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they'll come out with a certification for client devices as well.
That was one of my feedback is it's great that we do this with the infrastructure, but we also need to make this happen with the clients.
Yeah. Well,
what
maybe
else do we
working
have
on it.
here? All right, so we got our the last bit we want to talk about, which is optimization, because that's once the network's in and that it's not done, it's got to optimize or be self-optimizing, if that's even possible with EasyMesh.
Yeah. Controllers select the best path to connect the agents together.
Yep, and that goes back to 802.11k, right? Gathering that link metric. And I think this will be interesting, I think, because with Mesh, it's proprietary algorithms with a lot of the vendors that are out now. This kind of standardizes that with this certification, and it'd be interesting to see what kind of algorithm it's going to pick. What are the thresholds it has to meet in order to select the best path, right? You're talking about like a mesh, almost like a routing protocol in the house to determine the best path agents need to take.
It's interesting, and it's nice to see an evolution for those type of environments.
Yeah,
right on the Wi-Fi side.
I agree, because the home Wi-Fi network has been ignored for so long, and it only started getting better once these mesh vendors came out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So now with the mesh vendors coming out, the ISPs see this as a way for them to leverage that technology and bring it into an actual solution that they can benefit from. And I know they're going to say it's for the customer experience, but we all know they want to make more money instead of losing money with support. So I can understand that perspective, but I think this is one of the right ways, a good step in getting there to make home Wi-Fi a little bit better. And I know people will be pretty pessimistic about mesh, but there really isn't any other solution other than creating more spectrum. But even if you created more spectrum, you still have the problem in the home where people don't usually put multiple APs in the home. So how do you control all those APs if you're going to put multiple APs? So I think this is where the ISP can take an advantage here and use their gateway as a controller, and then also tie in those multi-AP agents together. And probably the more pessimistic part is having it interoperability between vendors.
Yeah. One of the biggest question around this certification is, will vendors implement the certification? If you think about vendors producing APs for ISPs, I think if ISPs put pressure on them and put it in the RFP, if you don't have EasyMesh, we're not buying from you, that might force them to do it. But I'm thinking about the other players on the market, like the Googles, Google Home or Eero. Those guys, they want to sell as many nodes as they can, and if their device is compatible with other devices, the customer might only buy one node instead of buying 3 or 4, right? And they like to have their own ecosystem, their own application, and keep their customer that way, so they can sell them more product.
You keep them in the ecosystem, and this and with EasyMesh, you're probably bringing them into the ISP's ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenge.
It will be, and there is also another challenge that we haven't talked about. There's this challenge with the multi-vendor support, vendors implementing this certification, and then different ecosystems. That's a different challenge, but that's more of a challenge for the businesses themselves and not necessarily for the customer. The customer doesn't care.
Yeah.
The other challenge is spectrum, I think. And I don't think EasyMesh is going to be successful as it stands today in our current environment. What we need to see is actually more spectrum come out. Because imagine going into like a multi-dwelling unit. You have multiple apartments, for example, or a lot of people in closely dense together. I don't know how EasyMesh is going to really work in it with our current state with available spectrum, DFS support, channel widths. I don't see how how EasyMesh will actually benefit anyone in that type of environment. So I think we need to start seeing more of a push to get more available spectrum, maybe in the 6 gigahertz range, and then we'll start to see this actually take off. And then on top of that, maybe see some of the benefits from 802.11. What is it? AX. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think
so you're thinking like in a multi-tenant building, you're thinking people will have multiple APs in their units?
I maybe not like 3 or 4, maybe just a gateway and then another AP. And I think that's where we'll need to see these two things come out with EasyMesh is more spectrum and AX. Because then AX, you get some of that efficiency that they're claiming you can get more. If you get more spectrum, then you can use more channel widths and not have so many access points stepping on each other, for example. So I think I think this is a good start, but we need to do more to get to a better spot. And that's what I think.
Yeah, and then we have the SMB market, right? If the EasyMesh solution is implemented by the ISPs and it's easy to implement and it works well, I can see them selling it to SMBs as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
This will play out very nicely for SMBs, especially for locations they can't get cabling in.
Yeah, and then the ISPs, they have a good reach to SMBs because everyone knows them. So maybe we'll see more and more.
We both see this being as a play for ISPs.
Yeah, well, maybe it's because we're exposed to it, and then reading the document, it stands out, right?
Yeah, it does. It definitely says this is going to work well for the ISP.
And I know it's not explicit in the document. You're not going to see anything related to that, or they don't even say home environment. They put pictures of house in the marketing document. I didn't really like they don't say.
I didn't like the diagrams that much, but yeah, especially coming out of the Wi-Fi Now conference where they were focusing on the homes and they were focusing on mesh, and they were saying how 802.11ax is going to help solve a lot of their issues. I think that's where this is going. I really believe EasyMesh is catered towards ISPs to help them solve their issues that they have with Wi-Fi in the homes.
Yeah. What did they had like did they have like a Q&A session right after the presentation during the conference?
They did. A lot of questions coming from analysts and not necessarily anything very technical. So if there was any technical questions, it usually came from me or Robert. Robert Boardman was there with me. So we were asking some technical questions. And we both believe that mesh is probably not going to be a great solution now. But yeah, we need other things to catch up in order for it to be better.
Yeah. But well, I think a lot of these features are trying to be implemented by vendors right now to please the ISPs. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays along.
Yeah, the customers don't know that. doesn't
No,
please.
customer don't know
They're
that.
not saying it as it's pleasing the ISPs, because it really does help in the ISP's benefit, which is less customer support calls and less truck rolls. But the way they word it is it's a better experience for the customer.
Well, if you're thinking of if you're putting your place in the ISP shoes, you see all these new mesh solutions as their competition, like the Google Wi-Fi, the Eero.
Yeah, it's
People are buying this.
competition. They're losing out on some revenue. Yeah, I see that.
And they don't have the visibility in terms of what's going on in the house environment. So when a customer is calling, my Wi-Fi sucks, they don't have anything. They're blind.
They don't own it.
So,
they just say, we don't. That's your Wi-Fi. We can't do. And it's bad customer service when you say, I can't help you.
Yeah, exactly. And then anyway, and then they have to send a technician, and then it's money for them, and such. So they started to try to develop their own solution in house. Some of ISPs decided to partner up with those new solutions. I know in Canada, Bell Canada did a partner with Plum Wi-Fi. It's like a little dot.
Oh, I think that's what Comcast is using. They're using Plum.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
it's a small little mesh access point, right?
Yeah, you
that's what
connect
they're
it directly to your outlet, and then it looks like a little lights that you would have for your kids.
Yeah.
You connect it directly to the outlet, but it's actually a small access point, easy mesh node, and so you deploy those throughout your house, and then they report back to the gateway, and then the ISP can get information. They have their own application, and so they have their own solutions to compete against all these upcoming new mesh solutions.
That's what we're probably going to see. That's what Comcast is doing here in the States. They partnered with Plum, and they're providing an application to help tell the users how to troubleshoot.
I think what I was going to say is from the customer standpoint, that's what they want to see. They're like, I can go on Amazon and buy this Google Wi-Fi that's going to bring me it's going to bring me great Wi-Fi, but also I'm going to have an application. I'm going to see who's using my Wi-Fi. I'm going to get more information, and the service provider, the customers are expecting the service provider to provide a similar solution, right? And maybe EasyMesh will help them to achieve this.
Yep. Well, I think we beat that one. We actually went into pretty good detail about how EasyMesh is going to work, and I think the next step is to actually see some of these products come out.
Yeah. We'll put the different documents into the show notes if you want to read them and get a little bit more technical details. They have diagrams to understand the onboarding process and such, discovery process if you're interested, as well as we'll link the marketing material as well if you want to know a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll have all the research for you to get more information on the show notes page, and just head over to clearsend.net. And if you guys like this episode, be sure to share this out with your friends or your colleagues, and help us out by giving us a review on iTunes. Let us know what you think. Just go to clearsend.net/iTunes, and it'll get you there to the right page. And we're looking forward to the feedback you provide, and helps us create better episodes for you guys and more content. So we appreciate all the feedback we get, and any recommendations you guys have. Feel free. And also, we updated the website, clearsend.net. Wanted to create something more user-friendly for people, so the episodes are like front and center. There's an archive that you can see all previous episodes. Let us know what you think. Head over to the website. Give us your feedback. Looking forward to seeing if it was a better change, or maybe something else needs to change. I already got one feedback and made a change on the spot. So...
Yeah, thank you. You said we, but it's mainly you, Roel. You can take the credit for that. Thank you for updating the website. It looks amazing. And
but you have access to it now.
I know. I know. I'm gonna be helping a little bit, but you can take the credit.
Yeah, we actually have a new news section where we're gonna write things that aren't published in our audio podcast. So anything that's news related, or even a tutorial on something, we're going to publish it in the news section. So if you head over to the homepage, there's a news navigation menu and just click on that, and we'll start putting more content there. Cool.
Great. And then you can also let us know what you think about EasyMesh on Twitter this week. We can keep exchanging on the subject.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think it's going to generate a lot of conversation. But yeah, looking forward to your thoughts. And thank you guys for listening. We will see you on the next episode.
So you guys have a good week.